All right, cool. So again, thank you for being on the show. First question I wanted to ask you: how did you come up with the name Brown 96?
Brown 96. Well, initially I was known as Brown P for Brown Pride. I just I mean it just for my people and stuff. Brown 96. I switched it up because I wanted to give that hip hop element because I was introduced into hip hop like I was listening to hip hop in 1996. That's when I was
Hey,
like,
okay.
what is this? Like I was already listening to oldies. I was listening to like to freestyle music and stuff like that. And then I noticed that hip hop was incorporating all these elements into its own genre. And I was like, man, what is this? And I started getting heavy into it. I got introduced into the Nas, into the Gangstars, into the Biggies, Tupacs, all that stuff. And I was like, damn, what is this? I was just like dumbfounded, bro. I was just like, how is this existing? And I didn't even know about it till now. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So you mentioned Nas and Gangstar. Who were some of your other favorite rappers around that time?
Oh yeah, I mean, in the beginning, it was nothing but East Coast for me. Like I was just bumping nothing but East Coast because that's what I was introduced to, early on. And then after that, once I found out that my own people were doing it, I was hooked on that. You know what I mean? I was hooked on the whole ALT, on the whole Frost, on Proper Dose, Lighter Shade of Brown. I was just hooked on that, and I've been fucking with it ever since.
Yeah. So I'm a little younger than you, but like, how was it? How do you, I guess, because like right now we can obviously go to Spotify,
Yeah.
Apple, the internet, right? We can search up all kinds of music, but how did you discover new artists back then before like this internet?
Oh yeah, I mean, just friends, stores. We actually had music stores back then, so it's like the Sam Goodies. You know what I mean? Sam Goodies was a shit. That was at at malls and stuff. Like that was always heavy in malls. So
Hmm.
just places like that. You get to witness certain things that like you don't get to see on TV much, which are Latinos within rap, within hip hop. You weren't seeing that on TV much. And if you were, it was on some like Kid Frost level. You know what I mean? It was not on some underground type stuff. So that's pretty much where it was.
Right on, right on. Who was like the first Latino rapper that you kind of that you saw and that you heard of, and then you're like, damn, this goes hard.
That's a good question, bro. I think the first song that I heard of Latinos doing it was Velvet. What is that? I think it's called Chicano Velvet.
Mm.
With Baby Bash. It was
Yeah.
Baby
Okay.
Bash. I forgot what other. It was a compilation of different artists.
Hmm.
I think it was that jam first, and then after that was Kid Frost's uh it's a family affair.
Okay.
That jam.
Okay. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
and then after that was like, damn, what is this? It's like I was like again, I was like, like the Pandora's box was already, you know what I mean, like kind of like finding out what hip hop is in general, and then another Pandora's box opened with hip hop within Latinos. I was like, damn, like I was
Yeah.
so astounded, bro. I was like so like I mean, like a little kid, bro, and that was already when I was a teenager. You know what I mean? But I
Hmm.
was I was like a little kid in the candy store, bro. Like like I couldn't get enough of it.
That's tight. That's tight. So did you grow up out there in Salinas?
Salinas, bro. Yeah, yeah. Born and
What?
raised. Yeah, but I actually lived because I talk to people in my podcast about the fact that I have so much love for my culture, for my people,
Hmm.
and so much so that I have experienced life within Latinos in up north in the Bay Area. I lived there in Berkeley, in Oakland for a while,
Okay.
and then I lived down south in Los Angeles and San Diego for a while too. So I got to experience both worlds, and they are just that. There are two different worlds, bro, and
Yeah.
that's why a lot of people don't understand. They don't understand each other. That's why there's conflict. The
Hmm.
Bay Area is a lot of there's a lot of black influence within it. So Latinos tend to you know portray that image sometimes because they're around that so much. When you're around something so much, you gravitate towards it. You tend to you know become it in a
Hmm.
way. That's something that gets instilled in you in some kind of way. And I don't hate on nothing like that. Like a lot of people talk smack about people that said the N word and stuff like that.
Hmm.
I understand. Like
Hmm.
just because I don't, I choose not to for whatever reason I have, but I understand. Like
Yeah.
there's nothing to bash about. Someone that wants to do a certain something within their style because they grew up around that. That's their thing. You know what I mean? That's what
Yeah.
they're comfortable with. That's their comfort. You know what I mean? My
Yeah.
comfort is something else. Everyone has their own comfort. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, especially if you're like, let's say you're the only brown kid in a and growing up in a black neighborhood, you know, all your
Mm-hmm.
family, all your friends, all your neighbors, they were saying it around you. So it's probably not even that you just grew up wanting to say it just because it was just a part of life, you know? Like I can see what you're saying by that angle.
Yeah, yeah, no doubt.
But I never really I visited Salinas once, but like what's the Mexican or like the predominant, I guess, ethnicity and culture there that you kind of see as like the predominant force?
Well, just like any other town, bro, it's divided. Just like in prisons, bro.
Hmm.
It's like everything like that in life is relevant within prisons, within outside life. Everything is similar because everyone divides themselves into their own little bubble.
Hmm.
So like here in Salinas, the south side is predominantly white. North side is combination black and Hispanic, and the rest of the town is just Hispanic, bro.
Hmm. Right on. Where you do you think that's like a part of human nature, or is that like another kind of outside force telling us to divide, whether it's white and brown, or whether it's religion, whether it's based off of other kind of, you know, things that could divide us?
Yeah, I think socially and culturally, we gravitate towards certain places, towards certain ways of living, towards certain ways that is socially structured.
Hmm.
I think when what's it called people that work within like what I mean like making sure that certain cities are a certain way. I think they have in their mind who's gonna live where, just
Mm.
based on how they structure things. Like it's no coincidence that they structure things in a certain way to look a certain way, and they put certain things in certain communities. It's no coincidence because they already have that's like their plan is way ahead of the community.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? So I think it has to do a lot with what I mean how the structure is, how what I mean how everything is geared towards structure. You know what I mean?
Makes sense. Yeah, I feel that like inner city, outer city, the suburbs, that kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah.
All right. Well, sticking with Selena's and just kind of like you as a child, what were you kind of like? What were some of your interests and hobbies growing up as a kid?
As a kid, I was outside a lot, bro. I had a lot of freedom because my folks were always working. So I was like either with usually with an aunt or like a babysitter or something, and they would really just like be like, okay, uh, go out there and play whatever. And I would be just like with the neighborhood kids, you know what I mean? And that's what kind of like led me towards a lot of bad choices
Hmm.
because I mean they were up to no good, so I was tagging along, and it is what it is. But I think it's you grow up uh knowing the good and bad, but some of them weren't so lucky to come out of the good and bad and teach others that these things are like not to play with. You know what I mean? A lot
Hmm.
of them weren't so lucky to come out and be like, you know what, that was all BS. Like, no matter, yeah, it was fun. Some of it was fun, and it goes back to you know who was there, to be there for you. That's why gangs are so popular because some of these kids don't have anyone to look up to. They don't have anyone to go for advice, so they either turn to drugs or to something like an influence with which usually ends up in gangs. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
and I was just fortunate not to join the gang, but I was around all that stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I think it's like the sense of community, right? Whether
Mhm.
it's people who rave about CrossFit, people who are all about the religion, people who are all about sports, even like they just, you know, if you're a Raiders fan, you meet a Raiders fan in New England, you're like,
Mhm.
oh shit, like we instantly click because, hey, we're both Raiders fans. And so it's just like that sense of community. And I feel like that's the same thing with gangs. I just think a lot of times in like lower communities, they don't have proper outlets, or sometimes they don't always have like, you
Mhm.
know, a proper supervision because like you know a lot of parents be working two jobs or working late, so when the kid gets home from school like they kind of can do whatever, and it's just their product of their environment, you know, like they don't even want to get into the gang, but whether they had an older brother, an older
Mhm.
cousin, maybe an uncle or aunt that did it too, and so they just kind of like brought up into it, and it's
Yeah.
all that they know, you know, they're not exposed, you know. I think that was the craziest thing. I was talking with another guest is like how he, you know, he grew up from a he's a first generation Mexican American too, but in the summers he would go to Mexico, and like, you know, I think that's like huge because I feel like a lot of times at least in the neighborhoods I grew up in, if you don't travel in summer, you're kind of just stuck in this bubble. And that's what kind of leads you to hanging around with the neighborhood kids and maybe doing bad stuff or maybe doing stuff you probably shouldn't, but like I know like in a lot of like richer, like higher socioeconomic areas, summers are meant for like traveling or going to some like weird class. I don't know. You know what I mean? It's just like it's a a balance based off money, but it's unfair to the kids because they didn't do anything but just be born into that situation.
Exactly. See, and you mentioned something that you know what I mean that I did go through. My folks, we would go to Mex,
Hmm.
where we're from the Pueblo, and then we would be there every year, like at least once a year we would go. So I got to experience life over there too, and I got to see the poverty over there, and
Mm.
that's what really, really, I think that really helped me. Like to be real, that really helped me to be more humble, to be more love to love my own instead of have that hatred because of X, Y reasons. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
A lot of people grow up with hatred towards their own because they have frustrations already growing up in a situation where it's like there's a lot of unfortunate events that happen because of economic what I mean reasons, because of a bunch of reasons. But we grow up already having that hatred. We don't know how to. No one taught us how to control our what I mean, our anger. A lot of
Hmm.
us have anger issues. Like I have anger issues. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I've been teaching myself like meditation and all that stuff, but that came after. Like I'm 35 now, you know what I mean? So that came way
Yeah.
after. Like someone should have sat me down and like, this is how you can control your anger. This is how you control your emotions. Like try this, try that. You know what I mean? No one
Yeah.
ever sat me down to do that stuff. Not the school, not at home, not at church. And church, that's another problem, bro. Church is another problem because they say that that's the best place to to be able to gain all the knowledge. Like that's supposedly the knowledge. You
Hmm.
know what I mean? So that's that's another thing that kind of like pushed me away from church and pushed me more towards being a spiritual person and not
Yeah.
need church for that. Like you don't need church. I mean, at least I think that you don't need church to be a better person.
Right.
You you get to the stage in your life that you find that it's better if you look for it instead of someone telling you go to it. You know what I
Hmm.
mean?
Yeah.
And but all that, bro, like made me into a better person. You know what I mean? Because and to this day, bro, it got engraved in my mind when I seen as a kid over there in Mexico. That we would go to a church that was in that pueblo,
Mm.
and we were right there, and my folks were praying, and then this older man came and kneeled down in front of the Jesus, and he was just like out loud asking Jesus for like what I mean, to at least bring some potatoes to his family that that winter. And I was like, damn, and I was like 7 or 8, something like
Yeah.
that. I was young, and I remember that like, and for something that just shows that things that you see as a kid do save in your mind. They do have an impact in your mind. And if you see something horrible that like if you witness something as a kid, that just shows that if it's positive or negative, that will engrave in your mind and you will forever that will forever haunt you either in the positive or in a negative way. So
Right.
that's what that taught me. And all that thinking about like influences and stuff like that, that's what led me into wanting to learn more about the brain, about the how people function. And
Hmm.
that's why I'm trying to get my degree in psychology right now. So that's why I'm
Okay.
trying to do all that. Because it's
Damn.
like it's been interesting, bro. Just like dealing with people that make certain choices in life within gangs that I seen and stuff like that. How I question myself when I was around those people. I would question myself like, how can someone just because of a small problem or something, they would go out and just like their light switch just turns from like normal to violent, from
Yeah.
normal to I'm down to kill. Like how the fuck does that function like in the mind? Like I was so
Hmm.
curious, bro. I was like, damn, how is that possible for a human to just like from one moment to the next? All right, let's go ride, let's go fucking do this, let's
Yeah.
go. I was like, damn, like, and little by little, I was like, this is not the people that I should be around. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that was, I pushed myself away from that, and you know what I mean? So that's a
Yeah.
lot of that.
That's dope though. I think like growing in spirituality outside of religion is good. I think religion is good in certain aspects. I think there's certain parts that I like. I still believe in God, and I grew up
Yeah,
Catholic, but I just
yeah,
remember
me too.
around high school, 17, 18, like I remember I had aunts on different sides of the family, and like one tia, she had like, I learned that she was trying to have kids earlier in her life, and she ended up having a few miscarriages. So like it didn't work out for her. But then I had like another tia, never tried to have kids, had three kids or four kids. I don't want to say by accident, but like unintentionally with different men. And, she was just kind of running around, and she's, done time and done bad stuff. And I just remember like asking my mom, like, how can like this good quote unquote like good person, a person of religion, try to have kids, and it doesn't work out for her, but then this other person breaking the law, doing bad stuff, and she gets kids like easily like that. And I remember that was the first time I kind of started questioning religion, like big time. And
Mm,
I've had my own conflict like here and there, especially as an adult. I'm 26 now, and I kind of go back and forth. And while, like I said earlier, just while I like some parts of religion, I understand that it can't be like everything. And there's, I think people who it is everything sometimes to them, they're a little bit hypocritical. And you can kind of see like they kind of push stuff on you, but then they don't always follow through what they're trying to say as well. So, I think it's just things like certain things like institutions of religion. And you look at historically too, like there's been a lot of wars fought over religion. There's been a lot of conflict. There's been a lot of, all kinds of arguments over religion. It's just like at the end of the day, we're all the human race. Doesn't matter our color or whatever we believe in. Like we're at the end of the day, we're all the same like type of, cells and DNA and that
yeah.
kind of thing. So I just think it can sometimes be carried away, I guess is like my final point with
Mhm.
that religion.
It could. And just like you mentioned, bro, anything can become a religion, like in the cult, like
Yeah.
sports, bro. Sports is
Yeah.
a big thing. I've seen people die off of, being fans, being
Hmm.
hardcore fans. So that's like, you know what I mean? That's like same equivalence as religion itself. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um, but like I always like I get into conflict with my mom, like sometimes, you know what I mean? She's a, you know what I mean, she's a hardcore, like, Catholic, and you know what I mean, I ask her certain questions. To her, she's like traditional, really traditional, so it's like anything that I doubt or anything that I question, it's like already a sin for her, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, you know what I mean? And I respect the fact that she is still like she lost two daughters, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
Like when they were young. I never got to meet them though. And even then, you would think that someone would like be like, "Well, God, why would you do this to me?"
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, like why would I keep believing in you? But that's what I kind of like. You know what I mean? I think to myself like, she believes so much, even after having two daughters, pass away,
Hmm.
and you know what I mean. So I'm like, you know what? Like, I respect that she stood solid with what she believes. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
What helps her in life, like. I tell her things like, I ask her things like, well, how come, a person that goes to church is not always, you know what I mean, a good person? Like, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
a murderer can go to church. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, but, and it's just like those kind of questions. She's like, oh, well, yeah, but you have to believe. It's like a belief that it's not there, but you know it's there. That
Right.
type of thing. I'm like, I understand that. I get that, because that's the same thing as a spirituality. You
Hmm.
feel the difference, but you don't physically see it.
Yeah.
So it's based on belief. It's based on trusting that it's there. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it's either way, whether you're spiritual or religious and believing in a certain religion, it's about the same thing as long as it helps you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's all I'm preaching. As long as it helps you, as long as it helps you to preach to others a positive message.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
don't be trying to like forcefully get people into it and tell you and have them tell you, nah, this is the right religion. Don't go to those religions. This is the right one.
Yeah.
Because that person doesn't even know for sure. You know what I mean? There's
Yeah.
no actual proof that that is the right religion.
Yeah.
But can't help people. It can
Right.
help people. You know what I mean?
Right. Right. And I think from a grand scheme of things, I'm sure there's different religions that kind of do it, but I know like Jehovah Witnesses, right? Their big thing is like they'll go door to door and kind of like
Oh,
preach their religion to you. And I think that sometimes rubs people the wrong way because it's like,
yeah,
well, like what you mean, like what who are you to say like to come to my door and say like this religion is better than what I was previously
more
at,
personal.
Yeah. So it's just there's certain ways to go about it, and like sometimes coming up and saying like this is the way, like that's not always the best either.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah,
Hmm.
I guess some people take it as an insult because
Hmm.
they're like, "Well, who are you? How can you for sure say that this is the religion to follow. Like,
Right.
what is that? You know, like I get that. I get why people get insulted. You know what I mean? But you know, it is what it is. Like if you like, everyone has a plan, bro. Like I believe that everyone, it's a plan for everyone. So
Yeah.
like, there's a plan for us meeting. There's a plan for us talking together
Yeah.
about this because someone's gonna listen to it and someone's gonna start. That's gonna train someone's mind to start, you know, rolling and thinking about their own lives,
Hmm.
what they need in their lives. Do they need religion? Do they need to be spiritual? Do they need to meditate? Do they
Hmm.
need a whatever? You know, do they need to go and donate money to a good cause? And
Yeah.
talking about that, bro, right after that whole event that I told you that I seen in Mex with the
Yeah.
man asking for some potatoes, um, I I was so like so motivated to do good, like
Mm.
bro, like that made my mind switch from like being ignorant and like being so naive to
Hmm.
it flipped it to like, damn, there's people really struggling in the world. Like you would, I mean, you would hear it in TV. They would put those commercials of like, you know, donate money to this and that cause or
Yeah.
whatever, and you'll see it like, well, that's not happening here. And people just like, you know, dismiss it like whatever, you know what I mean? But once you see something in front of your eyes that is real, it's not just for clout, it's not just for people trying to rip people off because you know what I mean, trying to rip
Hmm.
people off on some cause like this, like it's on some real stuff, you know what I mean? When you
Hmm.
see that firsthand, it makes you into a different person, bro.
Oh,
And it
hell
really
yeah.
does, really
And
does.
yeah, and I know we have like the pandemic this year, COVID-19, obviously been like the main theme of this year in the States and in the world really. But I feel like here in the United States, like there's like there's a big homelessness problem, right? And whether it's there's a lot of different factors, I'm sure, but like that was the biggest thing for me is like I grew up in SoCal, didn't really get to travel and see a whole lot growing up as a kid, but then like college came, I had the chance to go to Sacramento, so I went to Sac State, and in that time, I was able to travel and see Sacramento, see Stockton, see Fresno, see a little bit of like Oakland and different parts of the Bay Area, and like you realize like there's homeless people everywhere, right? From LA to St. Louis. I haven't got further past St. Louis, but like I've been to Dallas and Arizona and any big city you go to, like you drive around certain parts, like you're going to find homeless people in large crowds. And it's just it's one thing that like I guess we just so sheltered from it because we have these homes or in neighborhoods, and sometimes we think we have it bad because we're just so secluded off to our own little like bubble per se, especially now too with COVID because we can't really go out and experience things a whole ton. And I just think it shelters us away from some of those real problems. Like you said, you can see it on TV, but until you see it firsthand and see the streets filled with like homeless people in their tents, then it actually like changes perspective. Or until you go to Mexico and see someone down on their luck, that's when it kind of changes that perspective. So it's about, I think it's about getting people to see face to face with those problems, not to like rub it in and be like, oh, like see what's going on, like you need to help. Not even just that, but I think like opening their mind and understanding that this is real and this is the problem. I think that'll definitely help causes like that.
Just to add something about the whole thing with you know, seeing that and trying to help in any way. My first job that I got, I actually wanted to get that job just to send money over to like, you know, poor countries and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like I was like 15 that I started, like I actually would come home on the way home, walking home from middle school. I would like stop by different stores and just like, hey, you guys need help, whatever. And my goal, like my literal goal was to just make money to send off to like, you know, like kids, like, you know, starving and shit.
Damn.
Like that's what I'm saying, bro. Like these events either break you or make you.
Mm-hmm.
Like when you see some things, either make you like depressed and think you like make you think like damn, like this world is fucked up,
Mm-hmm.
or it makes you think like, damn, I need to do something in this world. Like I'm here, like you know,
Mm-hmm.
I need to do something in this world. You know what I mean? Like, and those thoughts always come to my mind, and like I talk to my wife about it sometimes, and she's like, "Damn, you think too much." I'm like, I do, but you know what I mean? Like I've always been this way. I've always been like just thinking so much, and I think that has a lot to do with me getting anxiety too. So like that's another topic,
Mm.
bro. That's another
Yeah.
topic of why I wanted to go into learning psychology as well. You know?
Mm-hmm. I think being an overthinker is good too in a certain way. Like you going back to the religion thing, like you challenge certain things, right? Whether it's
Mm-hmm.
rules at school or laws and some of it could be good, some of it could be bad.
Mhm.
But I just think the fact that like you're not willing to follow everything just because someone else in a higher status says it, I think that's really powerful too. The fact that you can think about certain things and like why are these things the way they are, where some people are just like, oh well, because I said so, or because so and so said so. They're like, oh okay, and they'll just keep on moving. And it's like not saying that's a bad mentality to have either, but like I think sometimes they're missing a little bit of the bigger picture, and so it's good to like overthink about certain things, if that makes sense.
Yeah, certain things are good, man, but yeah, it's it's that living in the future type mentality that really messes you up because you
Yeah.
start thinking all the possibilities that can go wrong, and then you
Hmm.
start doubting yourself, and you know what I mean. It's a kind of like it could be a loose win, you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Sometimes you do get it on right on the dot, and you do conclude something pre thought
Hmm.
that actually happens, and you're like, good thing I thought about that, you
Yeah.
know what I mean. But sometimes it's just overthinking it. It just, for nothing. Just for nothing. You're worried for nothing sometimes.
Yeah, I feel that. So you mentioned plans earlier, and going back to like being a child and stuff. In high school, what was your plan? Did you kind of have an idea what you wanted to do career wise or for the rest of your life right after high school?
Well, and I talk about this a lot in my podcast where I talk to people that have gone through certain situations like I have,
Hmm.
and I mentioned the fact that at one point I was hanging out with the wrong crowd for I was hanging out with them heavy so much so that at one point I was like living day by day. I wasn't
Mm.
really I wasn't really what I mean, trip sense, like I wasn't really my the future didn't seem like it was it was clear, like it was like moment by moment because I at that point I realized that I was already sides. That's the thing. Like I grew up around both sides, like both enemies. I guess you could say. Um, and I was losing friends on both sides. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
And it was weird, bro. It was so weird that um I don't know, bro. I just can't my finger on how to explain how everything was like because when I started knowing what the whole gang mentality was, the whole gang culture,
Hmm.
I was naive. Like I was just friends with people that were friends with me. You know what I mean? Like, and that's the messed up part that these kids my age, I was like in elementary school, and these kids already knew about the culture at
Hmm.
that age, and I was just like innocent. Like I was just like no one. Like I didn't have no family members that would talk to me about the culture. I didn't know anyone. I just knew that I just wanted to have fun with these guys. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
And little by little, I guess they had brothers that were in gangs or whatever, so they already were, you know, they seen it already, so they already understood the culture. But once, I was just friends with people that were friends with me, and like when I was older already, like they were just, they would die. They would be like, "Hey, did you hear so and so died?" I was like, "What? For
Yeah.
what? Were they sick? Were they sick or something?" And nah, they got shot. I'm like, "What?
Yeah.
Dang, that's crazy." And so that's what pushed me more to be like, you know what? Fuck the BS. Like, it's our people. Like it's like our race talking bad about our race against our own when the focus, I mean, of course, violence shouldn't be portrayed at all, you know what I mean? But wouldn't it make sense that if there's people literally calling us wetbags from another race
Hmm.
and we are killing each other,
Yeah.
why are it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. Like how does that make sense
Right.
when that's going on? The
Yeah.
focus should be on people, on us as a people sticking together and fighting against oppressors
Yeah.
rather than fighting our own for no damn reason.
Yeah. And I remember you had a conversation like this, I believe it was with the young high flyer. I forgot his real name, but you were talking about how like we kind of lost our sense of community
Oh yeah,
coming,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah. Mm-hmm.
in this like Western culture, right? Where or not communism, capitalism is so pressed heavy, right? And we're all like individual dog eat dog world, and we just like we're all Latinos, right? In this neighborhood or in this community, but we feel like okay, if one person gets on, like that person gets on, and if you're not friends with that person, you almost like envy them, you hate them instead of like trying to be proud for them, and then and it's reciprocated too. Like sometimes, a lot of times, you see people who come from these, poor neighborhoods. They'll, if they get on, or if they, whatever industry that they get make it in, they're like, they're keep to themselves, and they don't want to give back, and it's all about me versus, helping a community. And I think that, man, that goes back to what you're saying, is like, we're, at the end of the day, I ended up like, I, in a similar way as a kid, I never understood why like black and brown people didn't like talking to each other, because it was like, well, hey, like we're both being oppressed by like the same group
Yeah.
of people. Like, why are we fighting? Like, like again, it goes back to what you're saying earlier, the whole divide and conquer. And I remember that was like a big talking point of one of your episodes, is just, that lack of unity in communities. And whether, no matter the race, is just like, there's people who oppress, and there's the oppressees. And so it's like, but the fact that the oppressees are still fighting over each other for scraps, sometimes it's like, damn, like we're just we're not making any real like movement. Sometimes it feels like.
Now let me ask you this, bro, and this is what I'm kind of like. I'm kind of being open about nowadays because I kind of figure like there's a lot of platforms, bro, a lot of platforms, and I focus on my people's platforms,
Mm,
rather than to focus on in general platforms because everyone has their agenda.
yeah.
But now regarding my people's platforms, like yourself, there's just a whole bunch of our people that are have platforms, podcasts. What is your thought on this question where we are all we all have our plans to why we have a podcast, right?
Mm,
My goal is to basically enlighten people and bring in stories to make people think about these situations that they went through so that they don't make the same mistake
mm,
and we don't go backwards with our people because there's a lot of you know what I mean, like hypocritical things that are going on with certain people that say something, but in reality, in real life, they don't put that to work.
mm,
You feel me? Like, and I've called out certain artists, you know what I mean, especially artists because they have influence. They influence people, and I've called out, certain artists and asked them like, okay, in your music, you're preaching unity, right?
mm,
But in reality, you're still pushing that gang agenda.
mm,
So, what does that make you? Should we listen to your music? Should we continue praising that you're one of our own and you're trying to make it big, or
yeah.
should we boycott your music
Mm,
because this is no good for the culture, this is no good for our people because people have died
mm,
based on that type of mentality and that type of context.
yeah.
So I'm on that right now, bro. I'm on actually showing proof. You know what I mean? Showing proof that I'm like not only preaching what I'm preaching, but I'm actually like
Doing
trying
it.
to do what I'm preaching. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like it's something else when you're trying to do it. Not only
Yeah.
that, but I think that there's a scared mentality where what I mean, this whole culture makes you think like if you talk too much, that's not good because
Yeah.
that's kind of like in a way dry snitching they call it. You know what I mean? But
Mm,
it's not. I don't think it's dry snitching unless you're doing it behind someone's back. But if you're actually asking that person and you're face to face asking that person, like, yo, like, look at the way you're doing things. Do
mm,
you think it's like is good for someone that's following you to hear you say all these things, but then
yeah.
watch you in your interviews talk about, yeah, 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 oh, fuck them over there and that. Like, what, you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
where's the truth? Where's the
Right.
truth? Are you really you know, putting our people down in reality, or are you really pushing our people up?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? What is the truth? You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So how do you feel about that, bro?
I feel like people, well, at least in the music industry, I think people, at least younger cats, right? And if you're older doing it, I think, hey, like it's time to grow up,
Yeah,
it's
the
that
ones that
thing.
I'm
But
referring to is are older, so that's
yeah,
even more of a shame on you for not knowing better. You know what I mean?
right. Yeah, yeah. But if you're like, in high school, fresh out of high school, or even sometimes in your young and mid
They're
20s and
still
just
learning.
haven't, yeah, you're still learning. And I feel like they sometimes do that, things like that, because you see like Takashi 69 get popular from it, right? Or
Mm,
you see like other rappers in the past. That's just like the most recent example. But there's been all kinds of rappers to do something like that, right? Where they promote bad things and then try and, back talk people or start beef. But it's a part of like the culture, and it's like it's not
yeah,
it's a bigger problem from like stemming from like what radio and TV and like news outlets and World Star and all those different people that can put out news and media to us. It's what they're promoting at the end of the day. And if they're promoting all this bad stuff, you know, other people that are growing up are going to see that and say, well, hey, I can get famous off of that, right? Whether it's genuine or not, whether I like this music or not, I can get famous and I can make a lot of money like Takashi, you know? And so I think that's where they're misled. I think there needs to be a lot more mentorship. I think that's something you've preached in a lot
Yeah,
of your episodes too. It's just whatever it is, whether you want to go be a mechanic, a doctor, a rapper, like there just needs to be mentors, especially in Black and brown communities, to kind of help like steer the way. And I guess that's like kind of what, like going back to what you were asking earlier too for my podcast, is kind of like to provide those little outlets for different people, because like I've had politicians at a local level on the podcast, but I've also had artists, I've had podcasters, I've had just different people, and I'm trying to get, like their stories of growth per se, because I work with kids, and I feel like a lot of times, like they ask me things and it's like, well, I don't have the answer for it because this is where my
yeah.
life path has taken me, and I'm only 26 too. Like I don't have all the answers,
Mhm.
but I know a good amount of even people my age like to listen to, and they're like, wow, like I didn't even know you could do that, and they're like, maybe changing their life in their mid 20s. So I just think it's I think it's just all misguidance though, going back to like what you're asking. It's just a lot of misguidance, and like why I think boycotting does help. If it's just like flat out boycott and like no explanation to it, that person's never
No,
going to
yeah, you
grow.
have to talk about it first. Yeah, you
Right.
got to talk about it. Get people not necessarily on your side, because
Mhm.
I don't like sides, bro. I don't like
Mhm.
for people to
Yeah.
be like, I want to be on his side. I want to be on her side. I want to. Nah, that's just on some cheeseman stuff, bro. I don't like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
But I like to bring in the facts.
Yeah.
How in history, throughout history, within that culture, we've seen it go down horribly. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Because of what they're saying. You know what I mean? So let's learn from it. Let's learn from it. Let's learn from Tupac
Yeah.
story. Let's learn from the whole beef. That have gone through in history of hip hop. Let's learn from it. Let's not repeat it.
Right.
And let me ask you this: who's worse in the era of the whole thing with Hitler? Who's worse than Hitler? His
Mm,
following. His following.
yeah. Right. Uh.
Yeah, because they believe something. They could have been like, nah, what the fuck? We're following this dude
Hmm.
on some stupid shit. Like, nah. Let me take a step back, and I have my own mind. I can make my own choices. I don't need
Hmm.
to be following someone that says just because you look like me, you better act this way.
Hmm.
No. Like those were Hitler didn't kill anyone. His following killed people.
Yeah.
His soldiers killed people. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? So they're the fucking devils. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? So just bringing it back to hip hop, who is the one wrong here? The one preaching it or the one following it?
Right. Makes sense. Yeah. Makes sense. Yeah.
Exactly, bro. So
Hmm.
that's what I'm trying to get at, bro. You know what I mean? And like right now, like I'm coming to like I've been researching a lot of our own people that are leaders, and
Hmm.
trying to find out what made them leaders. What made them leaders? What made people follow them?
Yeah.
And because like I believe that, like, for myself at least, I consider myself a Chicano.
Hmm.
Like, I don't consider myself Mexican. I don't consider myself American. I consider myself Chicano
Hmm.
because I feel that in Mexico, they won't fully accept me.
Right.
Even though I do speak Spanish pretty fluently, but they won't fully accept me.
Hmm.
In America, they won't fully accept me.
Yeah. Sadly.
So where am I at? Where am I at? Should I go in their lanes or should I be in my own lane as a Chicano?
Hmm.
And that's where I feel more comfortable. You know what I mean? Because like I want to feel accepted. Everyone wants to feel accepted.
Hmm.
And if I'm feeling like I'm an outsider to a certain side, then come on, like that's not welcoming,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, and think about like your experience right there, what you're saying. I mean, think about how many, down here in Santa Ana and Orange County, there's a big Latino population, but just think about like Latinos everywhere. Like I'm sure a lot of them feel like that. People who were born here, that are like claimed United States citizens by birthright, but they don't feel like they belong. And I feel like that's also a part of the problem growing up sometimes, is like you don't feel like you fit in, My parents, I think, did a nice job of, I grew up in Santa Ana, and then right before high school, we moved into this like suburb of Santa Ana. So it's a lot like more like middle class, I guess you could say. And there's a lot more white kids. But I remember like I never felt like truly like fit in. You know, it's like one, that's a tough time to move around middle school, right? Because you already have your established friends from elementary school, and then you move to a different city, different high schools, different ethnic groups. And I remember it was just like, you know, I think a big part of why I struggled, like to find my true identity was like in high school. Like I didn't have like a good core group of friends because I never felt like I truly fit in. And so I just think, but that goes to the stemming from the same problem, right? Because I there was like some, you know, like Chicanos or even like Mexican born kids at that school, but like there were, you know, because I played football and because I played sports and I did have some like whiter Asian friends, they were like, oh, like you're not really Mexican. And then, you know, I'd hang out with the other friends of different ethnicities and it's like, well, like, you know, you're obviously, I'm not white, I'm not Asian, like, you know, I can't really fit in with their groups too. So sometimes I definitely did feel left out, you know?
Yeah, and I had this conversation with my homie, the one that I make music with.
Mm-hmm.
He goes by SMK,
Mm-hmm.
and he was born in Mexico. And I had this conversation with him, and I asked him, "Well, do you think Mexicans from Mexico accept you fully, knowing that you know English,
Mm,
knowing that you grew up here in the States? Yeah, you might have been born in Mexico, and you might go sometimes to visit, but do you think they'll accept you as one of their own?"
right.
He thought about it, bro. He's like, that's true. Because once someone knows that you've been kind of like, I guess you could say, tainted by
Yeah.
another culture, they're like, well, ya se cree mucho. Yeah, he's not one of our own anymore. He's their people.
Mm-hmm.
He's their people now. So it's like, how do we take that in?
Mm-hmm.
How do we come to terms with the fact that our own essence is rejecting us?
Mm-hmm.
That's where a lot of conflict comes.
Mm-hmm.
Not sitting down and discussing what makes us us, what
Yeah.
makes us a unit. We discuss other things like, oh, let's check out Selena's fucking hairdo and shit like that. Let's
Yeah.
redo that. Let's go in detail about that.
Mm-hmm.
But how about our culture? How about our people? How about
Mm-hmm.
how we feel towards each other as people that have different divisions because of either skin color, because of either language, barriers that we sometimes we don't speak. And then that's just Spanish and English speakers. That's just Chicanos and Mexicanos and. But then how about other cultures within Latinos? How about the Salvadorians?
Yeah.
How about I was saying, so like even going towards focusing on the Triqui community, they have their own barriers. They're like in Mexico, they are oppressed. Indians, like straight up Indians, like the natives from
Mm-hmm.
Mexico that still have their communities, they are oppressed. The
Mm-hmm.
people in Mexico, Mexicans, they oppress them. They're racist towards them.
Mm-hmm.
They're like America or even worse sometimes.
Yeah.
And then people don't talk about those things though. You know what I mean? People choose not to because it's a touchy subject.
Yeah.
But other things that are like stupid and just not even worth mentioning. It's not touchy. It's I don't know, bro. It's just people get so comfortable in like in these like times where it's like, nah, let me just turn on the TV and just blank out of my
Yeah.
own thinking. I don't want to think about reality.
Yeah.
I want to think about what the Kardashians are doing. Why?
Yeah.
Why do we want to?
Yeah.
Why do we care what other people are doing? You
Right.
know what I mean? On
Right.
some entertainment, like let's care about what we are going through. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
and that's the thing, bro. Like it takes time to come to these terms. It takes time. It takes experience. It takes seeing fucked up shit
Mm-hmm.
to be able to start thinking this way. And that's the messed up part. That's the
Mm-hmm.
messed up part. That even if we hear it, even if there was youngsters hearing this message, they'll be like, yeah, but how does that affect me right now?
Right. Mm.
How how
Perspective.
do I fall? Yeah, how can I help at this
Mm-hmm.
point?
Mm-hmm.
Well, they can help by spreading the word that we are being oppressed by ourselves
Mm-hmm.
sometimes. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's a trip, bro. It's a never ending story because it's always something that's gonna come up that it's a barrier for us.
Right. And I think another thing too that as you were listing off things that we need, because one, I think it is to focus on reality and not so much reality TV and just other
Mhm.
distractions. I think it takes a lot of discipline too, right? I think that's while I wasn't a huge fan of school and like I did go to college, but it was more like a pressure from my parents and that kind of thing. The biggest thing I got from school was like discipline, right? In order to play sports, I had to have a certain GPA. In order to, my parents always like laid out things like in order to have a car, I had to have a certain GPA, that kind of thing. And so I just feel like, to stick to be good at school, like you don't need to be super smart, like birthright. You just have to like be disciplined with your work and do the homework like
Mm.
when it's assigned, put some sort of effort. You don't have to put like max effort, but just put a good amount of effort and you should be like, granted, like there are some special cases with people like ADHD, that kind of stuff. It's a
Yeah,
lot harder. But for the like general public, I feel like most of the time it's just discipline. And that's where it takes is, like to think about these larger than life topics. A big thing I'm like really pushing a lot right now is like eco-friendly stuff, environmentally friendly. Cause like, I listen to different things and read different things that like we're killing our earth by how much pollution there is and all kinds of stuff, right? All kinds of different reasons. And sometimes it can kind of get overwhelming where like, I feel like I'm making my contributions and then you see other people not, and you're just kind of like, oh, like I just want to give up, but it's about discipline, like this, it's like, I don't know. I stemmed back from school. I played a lot of sports too, so I feel like I learned a lot of discipline from my sports. But it's all kinds of stuff. Whether it's helping out your community, understanding bigger kind of picture stuff, not falling into the rat race that is America. I just think it takes a lot of discipline, and sometimes we don't always get that as kids in the outlets that we're given.
yeah. Not only that, but in school, bro, in school, like you get to choose, you get to find out what you're really interested in.
Hmm.
Politics, I've never really been that much. It's been interesting how things pan out at the
Hmm.
end of the day, but it's never been that interesting to find out more details about how it works. Which I kind of, you know what I mean? I freaking I don't like the fact that I didn't learn it early
Hmm.
on, at least the basics of politics and how it works. Because now I'm interested in it now,
Yeah.
but like before I wasn't, you know what I mean? And there's a lot of things that I wasn't interested. I was just interested in like things like sports. I was interested in like, music and things like that, but in art, but other stuff that really now I'm passionate about, I wasn't really. So that's like I have to start from scratch now, you know what I mean?
Hmm. Oh, hell yeah.
Which yeah, so which that's another thing that I talk to people about, like learn about at least the basics of subjects that are relevant and all will always be relevant in life. You know what I mean?
Hmm. And I think our public school system kind of does a disservice to us too. They kind of make those topics kind of boring. So I feel like we naturally
Yeah,
like zone out for those classes anyway, because it's just like they teach us like such a vanilla, like cut and paste kind of copy of certain things, and you're just like, oh, like I don't really care about this.
yeah, no, that's true, man, for sure, man. But like, okay, say for example, bro, I'll give you this example for you as having your podcast and platform.
Hmm.
If there's something that you see that pertains to and you foresee some violence coming about certain situations where it's someone that you already had interviewed, say someone you
Hmm.
interviewed is going at it with someone else you interviewed,
Hmm.
and there's conflict and they're bringing about their followers, each followers are attacking each other,
Hmm.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Don't you think that you have something to say based on just knowing both of them, just knowing the fact that people can get hurt? I mean, don't you feel that we kind of have like a responsibility because we're preaching over here positivity, we're preaching change, we're preaching like let's get over the BS and let's be man, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's something I would definitely, if put in that situation, I would say something, but I think more so to like the guests that I interviewed, not so much make like a public statement on social media because I don't know how many people that would actually reach of those people that need it. But if I had like the numbers of the people that were beefing, like text them individually and just be like, hey, like what's going on, and try to hear them side out, like not try and come up very attacking, and just try and understand where they're coming from, but then also just try and make a suggestion, about, like you said, keeping the peace and not promoting this violence, or promoting whatever they're trying to promote
Mm-hmm.
and beef about
Yeah.
each other. But I think, yeah, like it's like a tricky situation because if obviously if you don't come out, it looks bad. But then if you do come out and talk to them or ask them to do something, like you don't want to seem super preachy either, and people can get really defensive if you do.
Yeah. Sometimes it's a lose-lose situation, bro.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm saying though. Like it's just so controversial to want change.
Mm-hmm.
Just to
Yeah.
want change in the world. It's so controversial because there's people so stuck in their ways that
Yeah.
by changing something, it's like they get so offended. It's like,
Yeah.
no, I don't want to think otherwise. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Bro, I think it comes down to leading by example, right? I think as I've gotten older, especially working with kids, you could tell like kids to do this and that, and maybe as younger teens or preteens, they're like more impressionable. But I think at the end of the day, like they'll respond to like how you carry yourself and not so much what you're saying. And I
Mhm.
think, like over time, I've kind of noticed that to be a little bit more effective, you know, because I feel like, you keep spewing the same message. Sometimes it just goes over their head, and at least like I'll say too, even like in my friend circle right now, I feel like some people my age at 25, 26, or in the mid 20s, they feel stuck at wherever they're at. And I'm just like, bro, like you have so much life ahead of you. But if I came super preaching, was like, you need to quit and do this and like that, like they'd be like, oh, like, like it might be overwhelming or blah, blah, blah. So I just feel like, I just got to continue to do me and like non-directly kind of try and inspire them that way, I guess. I don't know if that makes sense, but kind of just do things in the background and hopefully they just kind of catch on. And if they have questions, and be sure to answer them and that kind of thing. But it's not so much like you trying to tell them or order them how to do it.
I feel with that, bro, like that we sometimes feel stuck in life is because we don't see the reward right away.
Yeah.
You feel me? Like there's been so many times that I'm just like I'm just like, and I have actually like stopped my podcast just out of nowhere. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? Just cold turkey. Not announcing it, not nothing, just like fuck it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And and then it's like I'm trying to find myself. I'm
Mm-hmm.
trying to find why really I'm doing it.
Yeah.
Is it to say that I'm doing it? You know what I mean? Just to say, oh, I did it in my life.
Mm-hmm.
Is it to is it to really put out a message that someone can learn from? Is it to is it to say that, you know what I mean? That me, a person that really was that felt worthless at one point, to say that I'm trying to do something in life. I'm
Mm-hmm.
actually being the change.
Right.
Not only saying I'm going to change, but being the change. Is it
Mm-hmm.
that I'm going for? Like, do people that are stuck in life, they need to realize what it is that they want, not just
Mm-hmm.
what people are telling them that they should do, because that's
Mm-hmm.
totally different things. That's like, you know what I mean? That's just not it. But like, they need to find out what they want
Right.
and reward themselves in the process. It can be small things. Like I do this sometimes. Like I actually most of the time I do this just to have something to look forward to. Just simple things like I order myself because I love vinyl records. You know what I mean? I
Oh
collect
yeah.
vinyl.
Yeah.
I order
Okay.
myself. I order myself a vinyl. Like even vinyl on eBay or whatever.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I'm like in the back of my mind when I'm kind of like exhausted from the day or whatever. I'm looking forward to at least that. Like oh shit. Like I'm imagining already playing the record.
Yeah.
Vibing out to it, sitting back. Drinking some coffee or an evening drinking some beer or whatever. Just vibing off to it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So we have to put ourselves in those places, in those situations where we know that we feel happy
Right.
mentally. We have to do it like when we're down. And of course, I feel down all the time. I feel like I'm just like worthless sometimes. I'm like, damn, like I could be
Mm-hmm.
doing so much. I mean, I got 5 kids, so I know that that's kind of like what I mean. That's gonna slow me down throughout the day.
Mm-hmm.
But just knowing that I could be doing so much more. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
That thought makes me feel like I'm like not doing
Mm.
enough. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
But we're tricking ourselves by doing that though. I beat myself up for thinking that way sometimes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then I go ahead and let me look at some motivational videos on YouTube. I mean shit, we got YouTube. There's so much good content on YouTube that could bring up our spirits, you know what I mean? And we're
Yeah.
using it to watch freaking Logan, Paul Logan, all those fools. Like, why are we watching them? They got their
Right.
own life. They're living the life. They're living the
Right.
life. Let them live their lives.
Hmm.
You have your own life to worry about. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you're worrying about it on someone else's church.
Yeah. But I think that goes back to what you were saying earlier, how you said, you know, we have to find what makes us happy. I think a lot of
Mhm,
people probably couldn't answer that genuinely, you know, because they're caught up so much watching other people, whether it's
mhm,
on YouTube or on TV or whatever platform that there is now.
mhm.
You know, you base your wants off of what the Kardashians want or what the Paul brothers want or what the NBA players want. You know what I mean? But like that may not be truly what you want, but you feel like it is because you're spending so much time watching that. And I think, you know, that's something that it's a challenge to finally discover yourself. But I feel like the older and older you get, it's harder to discover. And I think, you know, it's as a kid, we're not really pushed to find out our individual true self sometimes. Not at least at school. So it has to be like a family thing. But if you're, you know, a family member is pushing that on you, it's like, where do you find that? And so that's one thing I've kind of discovered about myself, you know, kind of like it probably took me to like 23, 24 to kind of figure out like what I really wanted to do. And even now it kind of, you know, add some tweaks and stuff to it. But it's all part of the growth. You know, I think it's just a big process of finding out like what truly makes you happy. But I think a lot of people right now, if you were to ask them like that, you know, they wouldn't be able to respond.
Yeah, that's the thing though. We need to try different things too though,
Yeah.
and that's what I kind of get frustrated with my kids because I put stuff in front of them for them to try out, and they're like I don't really want to try it. Like I have music instruments and I have them like play, watch, YouTube and basic how to do things and have them like kind of mimic it and just learn little by little the basics.
Hmm.
And they're like, so it's like a lot of kids are like that though,
Yeah.
because I work in elementary school. So I've seen kids, like I see kids, well not right now, but I do it online. But I see how kids are with their motivation.
Hmm.
Is like lacking most of the time. They
Yeah.
need they need constant rewarding just to keep going with something so simple. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
And of course there are those disciplined kids that are just like so disciplined from the get-go. They don't need that extra discipline. For some reason, some kids are just born with that.
Yeah.
I guess even if the family is dysfunctional or whatnot, some kids are just they just triumph
Yeah.
with no extra, needed help. They just
Hmm.
do it for some reason. And I always applaud those kids because I'm like, damn, how? It's
Yeah.
just internally they're born with that. Like what is it? You know what I mean?
Hmm.
And some kids are just so much lacking that motivation that you have to like push them and actually put them in front of their faces. Like here it is. Like do it. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. And that's what's
Yeah.
crazy. It's like everyone's wired differently. And you know,
Yeah.
we notice it in kids, but like as adults, I think it gets harder. One, it gets harder to talk about, and two, it gets harder to identify, you know?
Hmm. No doubt. Yeah, man.
Hmm. So moving back to your podcast, what was the inspiration behind starting your podcast?
Yeah, man. So I would always search for something like that. I would always be on the lookout for something to motivate me, and more so if it had to do with my people.
Hmm.
So I would look around for something like that, and I didn't find that. You know what I mean? So
Hmm.
I was like, why don't I see a platform where the people that I look up to with the music are talking, they're talking about these real life situations, real life things that they've gone through and they learn from and they want to, tell it to the world. They talk about it in their music, like I said, and going back to the same subject, they talk about it in their music, but in real life they don't talk about those things.
Hmm.
So it's like I reached out to them. So like I reached out to Kid Frost and like, you know what I mean? I had that conversation where, you know what I mean, like you've gone through it all. And we're like when it comes to having fame, I've heard that you get to experience certain things when it comes to like mental health. You know what I mean? And did you go through any of that stuff? And then he mentions that he was in the military. He actually did get PTSD, and because he's seen one of his partners die out
Oh
there,
shit.
and he gave me the rundown on that, and we discussed that, and that's something new. That's something that he never talks about in his music. That's something that people are going through right now in life, and he could have helped by
Hmm.
talking about it in his music,
Yeah.
you know? And instead of talking about, well, it was cool. I mean, he talked about the culture, the Chicano culture, which is cool. You know what I mean? That's what made him him. But talk about Chicanos also went to the military.
Hmm.
that was a big thing. Like, you know what I mean? Why not talk about that? Why not talk about the fact that Chicanos in history have been told, if you go to war, we will give your family papers.
Yeah.
Why not talk? And then they come back and they don't get no papers.
Mm-mm.
You know what I mean? So why not talk about the real stuff? You know what I mean? They've
Mm-hmm.
seen it, they lived it, you know? So, pretty much those questions, you know what I mean? And then that's what really made me want to like continue with it. We're like, damn, there's something here, something
Mm-hmm.
really here that I'm tapping into. You know what I
Okay.
mean? And that's the thing, like from the get-go, I was never on some I want to blow every single other podcast out of the fucking ocean with, you know what I mean? And that's what a lot of people go into it thinking that way. Like,
Yeah.
because they're told through sports, they're told through whatever they believed in, that you have to be the best,
Mm-hmm.
better than the rest.
Right.
Why can't you just do you without going in it with that mentality?
Mm-hmm.
Because once you get into it with that mentality, you're like, well, fuck the rest. I'm not gonna listen to their shit. I'm not gonna listen to how they do it, because I got my own way to do it. I'm not gonna, like, I'm not even gonna associate with them, because they might think that I'm trying to jock them.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the type of mentality, bro, that a lot of people are going through. They,
Mm-hmm.
they they start, instead of like being associated and being like on some, like, yeah, that's cool. You know what I mean? Maybe I can help you out. Maybe I can hit up this guest that I had and bring them onto your podcast on some love shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
People don't think that way. People think like, nah, I'm gonna keep them all to myself. This is
Yeah.
my guest. Like, I got this guest on my, you know what I mean? And damn, I'm like, damn, for real? You want it like that? you know?
I
And
feel
there's
that.
like, that's the type of mentality that I start thinking, and I'm like, do I really want to be a part of this? Do I really want to be a part of this? I mean, I don't want to turn. I don't want to turn to someone like that. I don't want
Right.
to have my ego go up just because I have certain people on it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like, I could be bragging about whatever, and I've heard other podcasters talking about, yeah, I've had so and so on my podcast. I'm like, good for you. What did you
Mm.
learn from him or her?
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they're like, well, we just talked. We just chopped it up. I'm like, okay, but what did you learn from them?
Mm-hmm.
Like every single conversation that I have with my guests, I learn something. I get something from them,
Right.
and I hope that those listeners get something from it as well.
Mm.
You know what I mean? Because I
Yeah.
mean, I'm not getting paid for it, bro. I'm not getting paid for it, so it's not the money.
Mm-hmm.
It's really therapy for me. It's really therapy for me, because,
That's
like I said
dope.
before, like I was going through anxiety, and that's why I talk about certain things when in my with my guests. I talk about, mental health, religion. I talk about the streets mentality, how we can change people's way of thinking just
Mm-hmm.
by talking about it, and all those issues, because it pertains to my own past and my own self. You know what I mean? That I want to address as well, and I
Right.
want to address other people's way of thinking and believing that it is what it is. You know what I mean?
Makes sense. Yeah. That's tight. I like hearing that,
Yeah.
especially like you said, getting different, like whether it's hood mentality or just all kinds of different things, like all kind of different perspectives. That's cool. How did you come up with the name the Hip Hop Spot podcast though?
I don't remember. I just remember going through a lot of names. just like, just like rappers do. Rappers, you know what I mean? We start thinking like, what resonates with me? What
Mm-hmm.
really resonates with me? And at the end of the day, I ended up with Hip Hop Spot, because this is the spot where hip hop was founded on knowledge. It
Mm-hmm.
was founded on, what I mean, talking about what enrages the people within, like the oppressed. The
Mm-hmm.
oppressed, we have a voice. The oppressed have a
Yeah.
voice. We have issues. We have things to address that the mainstream races won't let us, have a voice. They
Right.
they didn't let us be on TV before. They didn't let us even vote. They didn't let us, what I mean, talk about situations that we see, uh either some things that are in mainstream happening, we have a voice to speak on. They wouldn't let us be in those conversations. So why not make our own platform to have those conversations? And that's where hip hop came to be.
Mm-hmm.
KRS-One is the main one that I
Yeah.
really, really, that I really listen to, and on some knowledge stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And to this day, he's even like, in front of people, preaching that as a class. He has, he goes to colleges and, talks that talk. You know what I mean? So he's
Yeah.
not just about talking; he's walking it. He's walking it. So he's really up. He's really on that level.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and with all this, So that's pretty much where it came from, bro. The hip hop spot. That was just I'm gonna use something that pertains to me within hip hop, and I'm about that. Is that knowledge that
Yeah.
I want to put in it.
Yeah, and I like how you said that too. Like hip hop was like the voice of the people that were underrepresented. I feel like in a similar way too, like podcast is kind of like becoming that, right? It's a platform. Sure, there's a lot of like celebrities and former athletes and former movie stars that are starting podcasts, but I think it's what's cool about the podcasting is like any common person can start a podcast. Like you pick up a mic
Yeah.
and a laptop, or even I'm pretty sure you can do it on your phone too.
Oh
You
yeah.
can all yeah, you could start a podcast like that simple and talk about these ideas that aren't getting talked about in the media. And like me being like a journalism slash like communications major, for like such a long time, if you weren't on, ABC, CBS, or Fox, or the five radio stations in that region, like you didn't have a voice, you weren't being heard. And so that's the cool thing about like podcast is that now, because the internet's so expansive, like anyone with a voice can, put out their message, and you can hear these different ideas. And it's a lot of times from people who wouldn't have been given this platform had it not been for the internet and for podcasts and becoming such a popular thing. It's very similar to hip hop. I think in a similar way, like hip hop and podcasts have like very similar roots.
Mhm. No doubt, no doubt. Yeah, and that's pretty much what's been my my drive for to keep going with this. You
Yeah.
know.
That's tight. What do you have as far as goals set for the next year? Because it's 2021. It's a couple weeks
Oh
away.
yeah. Well, I'm one semester shy from getting my degree in psychology. So since I'm already working in the school district, yeah, so I'm using the go into it through the school district as a psychologist and learn from that experience. You know what I mean? And eventually have my own office. You know what I mean? Therapy. Giving therapy to families or whatnot. You know what I mean? Just helping the community. You know what I mean? Helping
Hmm.
because like, and I say this, and I've said this in my podcast where when I was barely having like I was going into like the whole anxiety thing and panic attacks and stuff like that.
Hmm.
I wanted so badly to go see a therapist, and to this day I never went, just on the fact that I didn't, and I don't want to sound racist and stuff, but I didn't want to see a therapist that would be outside of my race
Yeah.
because I felt that they wouldn't understand me.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to seem like, you know what I mean? Like, oh, nah, they don't have the qualifications for it. I'm sure they do. But just on some cultural level, they
Right.
wouldn't understand me. They
Yeah.
would say they understand me based on what they've read about my culture, but firsthand, they wouldn't understand.
Yeah. And that's the same thing I think with like me being in schools. I think it's like huge with teachers, right? Like I think most of my teachers growing up through high school were all white. I don't remember
Yeah.
too many. If there was Hispanic teachers, they were teaching Spanish classes or maybe like art class or something like that. But I think that's important for every minority, Asians, blacks included, Polynesians, every ethnic group here in the states, because I think if you can have, and not saying it has to be like, oh, like all your teachers have to be brown and Latino, no, but like it's good to have that mix, because I feel like they can relate to what sometimes you're going through, right? Like down the street in the high schools that I work at, like, sometimes kids' parents will get deported, and like, a white teacher or a white counselor or a white principal might not understand what that may feel like, and have any kind of experience with that. And so I think it's good to have people of like that community, similar experience, Latino background, who may have lived through that, even to kind of have them just as like a role model to guide them through that, what they're going through emotionally, and kind of
Yeah.
understand that perspective. And that's just one example, but it goes for, like you said, being a therapist, being a teacher, even being a police officer, like anything. I just think
Mhm.
there's going to be a lot more respect if you saw more people of your own skin color and your own ethnicity, um, in those positions.
Oh, yeah, man. No doubt. For sure.
As far as the podcast goes, what other goals do you have for this upcoming year too?
Oh yeah, well I'm writing and I've been writing my stories like the novels. So I'm
Hmm.
into writing story writing. So that's why I kind of I started a new podcast called My Gente Can Write,
Oh,
and I
okay.
do that on Thursdays. Yeah, so I talk to like authors, poets, anyone that has like the written word, like what I mean, anyone that writes, talk about their format, how they do it, how
Hmm.
have they published their works, how have they how do they stay motivated, and what tips can they give to starting writers. that type of stuff. Yeah.
There you go. You do you yourself write? Have you ever had anything published?
Nah, not nothing. No. I'm writing on the novel right now, but it's just like it's hard, bro. It's hard.
Yeah.
Like there's times that I have nothing to put on it. You know what I mean? And I have done. I have taken like workshop stuff like that. So I do kind of have an idea how to go about it, and I do outline. I do have like like synopsises of a chapter stuff like that, but it's not like it's hard putting it together like a puzzle.
Yeah,
That's my
makes
problem.
sense.
It's hard to like make everything make sense. It's hard to transition from scene to scene when it comes to novel. You know what
Right.
I mean? Writing. And that's what I'm trying to learn right now. I don't want to rush it because with this story, I want to make it into a. I'm already talking to some people like the story itself. I want to make it into a film eventually. So
Ooh,
like,
okay.
that's the goal. That's the goal. And I want to, and it has a big message when it comes to something that I went through, story like with my story, and something that can bring about change within our people when it
Yeah.
comes to like the gang culture and the street culture and just the our culture in general. I think it involves as well because we put divisions in a bunch of a lot of our day-to-day living. We put
Uh-huh.
divisions within our own people, and I think this will shed some light in that and how we're all the same. At the end of the day,
Mm.
we're all the same, and we all came from certain backgrounds that are similar. So why bash on each other for X, Y reasons when we're basically all the same?
Yeah. That's dope, man.
I mean,
If
so
yeah, go
yeah,
ahead.
yeah. I'm sorry. Yeah, so I can just give you a little in like details about the book. So it's called Street Love. It's
Mm-hmm.
called Street Love. Love has no color.
Mm.
So it's basically like a Romeo and Juliet. Because I grew up around norteños and sureños. It's
Mm.
basically a sureño falls in love with a norteña.
Mm.
So it's
Okay.
like that clash, and like not only that, but how I'm gonna show like the raw, of how things, the name calling, and at the end the recognition of we're the same, the recognition of like I would die for you
Mm-hmm.
type of shit. Like I would like genuinely die for you
Yeah.
because what I mean. There's that love chemistry, and you know what I mean. So it's like I want people to like step out of reading that book and say like and fucking love their fucking people, bro. Like
Yeah.
on that shit. I want people to like step out of that fucking watching the movie and be like, damn, like fuck, why didn't I see that before? You know what I mean?
Yeah. That
That's
sounds
what I
hard,
want. You
Joe.
know what I mean?
Good shit, man. Yeah, if I can help in any way, promoting or whatever, man, be
Oh
sure to
yeah.
let me know when it comes out, and I'll do whatever
Oh
I
yeah,
can to my part, you know?
no doubt. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
All right, so before we end the show, I do like to ask these fun, kind of quick hitter, outside the box questions, just so that listeners can kind of get to know you a little bit better. So the first question I'm going to ask, if you could have a conversation with any person, dead or alive, who would you want to talk to?
I would like to talk to Corky Gonzalez. He
Hmm.
was a boxer, and he really stood up for what he believed in within our people.
Okay, there
Yeah,
you go.
Rodolfo Corky Gonzalez.
What era of boxing did he fight in? Like what decade?
He was like in the 70s, no 60s. I think he was a pretty good fighter, as I have it understood. I read some of his work, and he writes about that, and I've seen the documentary of him and all that. But I would just like to ask him, like really, really, like have that conversation, just like me and you are having, but
Yeah.
about how he sees the culture and how he sees the divisions within our people and what he thinks that it's going to take for a real change.
Mm.
That conversation. Also, I would also like to have that conversation with Cesar Chavez because
Oh yeah.
there's a lot of sides to him, and I just going back to the fact that I told you that I don't fully see that Mexicans accept me and Americans accept me. That's why I give my own lane of being Chicano, being labeled Chicano.
Hmm.
Because he basically, but I mean, he took it a little further by saying certain words. But he basically was catering more to Mexican Americans.
Right.
He didn't really cater to immigrants,
Right.
which that's what a lot of people have, that grudge against him.
Yeah. Two
So I
sides.
would like to, I would have loved to sit down and ask him like, what do you think would unite us all
Hmm.
as a Latino people, including other peoples like Salvadorians, like Puerto Ricans, like
Yeah.
all that. what can unite us and not have division between us? Like really those questions. And I
Hmm.
think it's a tough question to take in,
Hmm.
but I do believe there is some kind of answer for it. At least something that we can like make better in our day-to-day life. You know what I mean?
Yeah, of course. You just gotta keep asking until someone
Yeah.
comes up with the answer, you know?
Hmm.
Next question. If you were stranded on an island but food and water are provided, what are three things you would like to bring to pass the time?
Besides food and water, a book.
Yeah. Okay. Any
Yeah.
book in particular or just one book?
Something that has to do with staying motivated, like a
Okay.
self-help type book. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's one. You get two more things.
Oh, oh, three. You said three. Okay, sorry
Yeah,
about
three
that.
things. No.
So a book. Let's see. So was it water and a flashlight
Flashlight. Okay, flashlight.
and a machine that makes food?
Okay. All right, just
What
a
am I gonna eat? What am I gonna eat?
well, yeah, food and water will be provided, so you don't have to worry about
Oh, food
that.
and water. I thought it was water. Okay, I thought okay. And it has to be a thing, not a person.
It can be a person now. People bring people before.
Yeah, someone that really values me.
Okay. All right, cool. There you go. That's the three. If you could have any toppings on a pizza, what would they be?
Jalapeños. Um. Uh. Uh. Let's see. Tomato, pepperoni, and bacon bits.
Okay. There you go. And then two more questions. If you could have any kind of exotic animal as a pet, what would it be?
A giraffe.
Oh, okay. Why a giraffe?
I don't know. They're just it's just cool and outside of the box. You know what I mean?
Okay, yeah. It's gonna be hard to store at the backyard though.
Yeah, yeah. It's possible though.
And then
Maybe
last question.
a baby giraffe.
Oh, okay, yeah, yeah. All right. And then if you could have last question. If you could give any advice to your younger self, what would it be?
Uh, really take in the knowledge.
Hmm.
Don't listen to outside sources. Really take it in because you want it.
Hmm. There you go. Good shit, man. Well said. Well, thank you again for being a part of this podcast and taking some time out of your Sunday afternoon to be a part of this. Before you go ahead and promote anything you'd like to promote with the show, your upcoming book that you
Yeah,
got coming out, or anything.
yeah. So it's basically just right now it's just a two podcasts. So it's every Thursday at 8 o'clock through my Instagram live. I do my Hint It Can Write.
Hmm.
And we just basically, you know what I mean? I even address questions that people may be putting on the live, you know what I mean? But it's basically we talk about, certain things within, book structure and how one can get better at their craft.
Hmm.
Every Sunday we do the hip hop spot at 8 o'clock. Um, and that's 8 o'clock PM Pacific time for people that may be listening to another state or whatnot. Um, and we have guests like artists, producers, actors, movie producers, directors, just people within entertainment.
Yeah.
And we get down with that real talk. And then basically the book, like I mentioned, is like almost halfway done, but I'm not rushing it, so I can't really give no dates. And as for just me, it's just if you have any questions about me or if you want to, be on my podcast or whatnot, just hit me up on my Instagram either through the Hip Hop Spot podcast or my Hint It Can Write podcast.
All right. Sounds good, man. Appreciate you again for being on.
Hey, thank you, bro. I appreciate you, man. And, I've been listening to your stuff, and actually, Marco from Carnalismo clothing brand had mentioned that he says what's up.
Okay. Right on, man. Thanks, bro.
Yeah,
Appreciate
yeah,
that.
yeah, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. And I appreciate your platform, bro. You're bringing light to a lot of good topics and a lot of good subjects within people's lives, and trying to make a change day by day, bro. That's all we can do. We
Exactly.
can't take in the whole world, but we can take in a bit at a time.
Yeah. One step at a time. I like that.
Yeah, yeah, for sure, man.
All right, man.
Appreciate it.
Good shit, bro. Appreciate you.
All right, man. Peace to everyone listening. Stay
Yeah.
up.